Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about something that affects a lot of people who use the load boards who connect with brokers in order to get their loads, because more likely than not, you are also using Highway because this is the platform that many brokers are using. Now, the news is new-ish, I would say, because this has been a requirement for many brokers, but it looks like post Montgomery, post the broker liability Supreme Court decision, Highway decided to make the ELD connection mandatory because this is what brokers are asking for. Now, I know there are going to be a lot of opinions surrounding this, but let's go ahead and chat about it. Ready? Let's go. Now, it is very true that a few folks have been having a very big issue with Highway because of the ELD connection requirement that is required by brokers. They basically put in filters saying that if you do not have an ELD connection, you are basically banned from getting set up with that brokerage. That being said, there was a moment quite recently where Highway decided to create a very clear exemption for vehicles that are exempt from having an ELD. But it seems, and the reason I say it seems is because I'm not 100% sure. I will find out though, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But it seems like that is over now. Now, according to Highway, and I'm going to quote this, given the Montgomery ruling by the Supreme Court, brokers are requesting tightened visibility into the motor truck carriers they hire to haul loads. More and more brokers will be demanding validation that the carrier booked on a load is the carrier picking up the load. Now, according to Brittany Graft, who is the COO at Highway, 90% of motor carriers there are actually already connected via the ELD connection, but that means that there is that 10% that are not. Now, what happens as of July 5th if you are not connected? So as of yesterday, quoting, your connections with brokers will fail if a valid and active ELD is not connected by the date listed above. Now, this memo also adds that brokers may be more cautious to perform rule overrides of a company's status in Highway and proceed to book a load given the recent ruling. Now, just so you know, brokers, or the way that Highway works, and I'll explain how I know this. Some of you already know how I know this. The way Highway works is it provides brokers with a plethora of filters they can use, and brokers will basically use filters to filter out carriers that they're not willing to work with. Like, for example, if your out of service score is a certain percentage and you meet that threshold, you'll automatically be denied from working with that broker. However, a broker also has the ability to override certain things. Just to give you an example, one of the things that we keep getting an override on is we were set up initially as a reefer carrier, right? With you have to have reefer breakdown insurance and so on and so forth. So one of the things that I keep getting denied for is the fact that we do not have reefer breakdown insurance, but we do not operate reefers anymore. We only operate open deck trailers, so it doesn't apply. And this is something that a broker will override. Now, with an ELD connection, some brokers would override the fact that you do not have a connection, your ELD is not connected to Highway. However, it seems like brokers are going to be less likely to override that. Now, how do I know all of this? As some of you may already know, I actually meet with Highway every single month, and we chat about the industry and the state of fraud. And my goal during those meetings is kind of to show them the carrier side of things and to basically be a voice for carriers. Many of you already are aware because I have been getting emails with very particular or very general issues you're having with Highway. And when I get those emails, I will bring those questions and concerns to Highway, and we will discuss, and they take it into consideration and they look through their system. Now, I know this is going to be a question, so in the spirit of transparency, which is what this channel is about, no, I do not get paid by Highway. I do this voluntarily because I feel like A voice for carriers is important for a system that has pretty much become the center of how you book loads. So there is that. So, one of the things I will be bringing up to Highway in my next meeting is the question I have about the 10% of carriers who are not currently connected to Highway via an ELD. Now, this is the real reason I'm making this video because I want to hear from you guys what you think and what you're experiencing, especially if you are part of that 10%. And I would love to go with that information to my next meeting if you have any concerns and so on and so forth. Now, here are the issues that I'm seeing right away with this particular thing, even though it was to be predicted that post the broker liability decision, we would see brokers becoming more cautious because they do not want to be named in lawsuits where a carrier gets into an accident. My question is, with this ELD connection, what happens to the drivers and carriers who operate older trucks? The FMCSA, as you guys probably know, has an exemption where if your truck model is pre-2000, based on the VIN and especially based on the engine, an ELD connection is not required. Now, it is my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because the FMCSA doesn't really state this, and even though I have been in this industry for, my goodness, almost 8 years now, I still don't know how a truck operates. I'm not very good at that, even though I have built all the furniture in my home myself. I'm not very good at understanding the components of the truck and how it operates. I don't know what furniture has to do with it. But as I understand, trucks that were pre-2000 don't even have the ability to connect to an electronic logging device. I researched it a little bit, and some of these older engines, according to my research, lack the EMC required to digitally record hours of service, which is why they are exempt, right? There is no ability for the ELD to actually work with an older model truck unless it is rebuilt using, I believe, a glider kit. This is what they call it. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand, the exemption exists because there is no ability for an ELD to connect to these trucks. So the question I have is, considering that Highway, like I said before, has become kind of the center of how carriers and brokers work together in order to move freight. Highway is the vetting platform of choice for more and more brokers. I do have to ask, what about the legitimate carriers and drivers who operate those older, more classical equipment? Do they now get blocked from working with brokers that use Highway altogether? Does that mean they're going to be forced to buy new trucks? Will they be forced to rebuild their existing trucks with a newer engine that can connect to an electronic logging device? Basically, I have a lot of questions that I will be bringing to Highway because this is an interesting situation we have where the FMCSA, right, the governing body, has an exemption for these older trucks, yet the primary vetting system that brokers use to connect with carriers is saying that if you do not have an ELD connection, you are not able to, you're banned from working with brokers. Another question I will be asking is whether this is a decision Highway made or whether this is still something brokers can override. Will an exemption still exist? Because I am not really clear on that. But yeah, guys, let me know what you're experiencing. Again, this started as of yesterday, July 5th. So I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are, what your concerns are. I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot of them. And I'd love to go to my next meeting with a lot of information that I get from you guys so that, again, we can provide some perspective from the carrier side. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining and watching. Wishing you all a fantastic Monday. Happy 4th of July. I know I didn't make a video on 4th of July and I am late, 2 days late, but happy 4th of July. I hope you had a fantastic time celebrating. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning.